a podcast with Dallas Holm. Hello.
Good to be back again. Jennifer and I are having fun doing these, learning a little bit, we hope, each time. So
Yes.
these will be so fabulous in a few years. You just
Yeah. Yeah. Hang with our learning curve.
Right.
Today we are going to talk about one of your favorite songs, He Knew Me Then. And it was featured first in 1976 on this album. First one.
Look at my hair is almost, except it's gray. But because of, as we're videoing this right now, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 things. I don't know when this is going to come out, but we'll probably still be wearing masks or whatever. So I can't get my hair cut anyplace, so I'm growing it out again.
Yeah, you're going for the 70s dude.
Letting it go. It'll take another couple of months to get to that. But
Probably don't do those sideburns again.
no, I don't think I'll do the sideburns again.
Yeah. So this was 76.
Yep.
And then it was released 1 year later on this one, which most of you probably recognize as one of the most loved albums, in 77.
Yeah, the Just Right album, the other one, was actually the last solo album I did before we formed the group Dallas Holm and Praise, which we did in 76. I was ministering with David Wilkerson at that time from 1970 to 1980. I traveled with him, ministered in his youth crusades. He's best known for his book, The Cross and the Switchblade, which chronicles the work he did in New York with the drug addicts and gang members. In 76, we had a conversation, and he just decided it might be a great idea to put together a band, a group, because a lot of our ministry was on college campuses, the beaches during spring break. It was very, very geared towards young people. And he had the insight, as he often did, to see what might be a better thing down the road. So we formed the group Dallas Holm and Praise. So that Just Right album is the last solo album I did. And then the next one was Dallas Holm and Praise, which contained the song Rise Again, which we'll talk about that in another podcast.
Yes.
But that came out in 77. We recorded it in November of 1976 at the Lindale High School auditorium, the old high school, which seated about probably 300 people. We had only known each other, Tim and LaDon and Randy and myself, just the four of us. I'd known Randy for a while, but Tim and LaDon were new. We'd only been practicing for just a few weeks trying to learn these songs. And I think we spent, if I remember correctly, a whopping $5,000 producing that album, which now $5,000 wouldn't even get you in the door of a studio.
No joke.
We recorded it live. A guy named Lee Hazen was the guy that engineered it, had a little travel trailer and some semi-pro gear and some really good mics and outboard gear. It was interesting because at that particular time, live albums were not that big a deal. I mean, it was questionable whether you could really sell a live album. Semi-pro gear that we used, they just kind of put their nose up in the air at that. I mean, we did everything wrong, supposedly. But it turned out that, of course, the song Rise Again was on there, which helped. But it was one of those things the Lord just took and anointed and used, and we kind of broke all the rules. In fact, I always joke because Rise Again is about number 4 on side 2, which is referred to as the graveyard of tunes.
Yeah,
that
not
was
the
another
optimal
thing.
spot.
Yeah, they said the worst place you could put a song on an album was where we put it. We just did what we did. We didn't know anything else. But the rest is history, as they say. God used that song, used that album.
Yep.
Even to this day, we have letters and emails and comments from people. Oh, you have no idea what that album meant to me. So it was really interesting. But all of the attention, understandably so, was kind of focused toward Rise Again. My personal favorite song of all the songs I've written, and I've just been asked that through the years in interviews, well, of all the songs you've written, what's your favorite song? And I think people are sometimes surprised because they sort of think, well, what their favorite song would be what yours was, or the song that gained the most attention in the marketplace, well, that must be your favorite. But the song in there entitled He Knew Me Then, which first was on the Just Right album that we recut on the live album, I've often said that's my favorite song. Probably one of the simplest songs I've ever written, but in the simplicity of it is the profoundly powerful message of the gospel. It's just, it is the gospel message. That's one of the reasons I've said, if God somehow came along and said, Dallas, just pick one of your songs, you can only sing one song from now on, I would choose He Knew Me Then, because I think it promotes the very simple, clear essence of the gospel. It tells us about the intimacy of His connection to us and His heart toward us and His mind about us. So yeah, that we recut it on there, and remains my favorite. I still do it almost every night in concert.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song, and it reminds me. I mean, you referenced in this chapter in Words of Hope and Comfort, Paul's writing in 1 Corinthians 2 that, "And when I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or of wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God, for I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified." And I think of this song, and I think of Billy Graham and Franklin Graham, who are dedicated to sharing the gospel. And the Lord has blessed, always blesses that, but has blessed them with just the pureness of heart to just share Jesus and Him crucified.
And that's something I've talked on through the years. You know, I've had the opportunity and privilege to do a lot of workshops with young artists, songwriting workshops, and especially in the probably late 70s, early 80s, as contemporary Christian music began to really, really grow and multiply and was a much bigger item in the marketplace. A lot of musical style, you know, you began to see experimentation in everything from bluegrass to heavy metal under the heading of Christian music. So there was a lot of controversy there. People began to write songs talking about things that had never been talked about before in the realm of Christian music. That became kind of controversial. I would always, when I led a songwriting workshop, I would often, and just as a kind of a little project, tell people get out a pencil and a piece of paper, and we're just going to pick an item in the room, and write a song. It might be the blackboard. Okay, we're going to write a song. Yeah, but it helps them learn. Okay, you can take anything.
Sure.
The creative process. You know, you pick an object or a concept or a verse or whatever, and then you begin to write. And you've got certain rules of meter and rhyme and so forth, and it's pretty challenging. It can be pretty challenging. But I would get asked all these questions about, well, do we always have to write about Jesus? Do we always have to write about the cross? Do we always have to? And I would say no. I think from every Christian, we of all people have the right, privilege, and opportunity to write about anything under the sun. But in the entire body of a Christian artist's presentation, if we don't have it all head to the cross, then it's just so much information. Yep. Might even be righteous information, but it's just information. We know from Scripture that there's only one message that can alter a human soul, that can change a life, that can literally transform, as Scripture says, to where old things pass away, everything becomes new. We literally become a new creature. That's the message of the gospel. When we trust in Him by faith and receive Christ, the gift of salvation by grace through faith, there's only one message that can have that transformative capability. That's the message of the cross. Now, how we get people to the cross, in our church community, sometimes we're pretty sheltered. We have vocabularies, we have idiosyncratic behavior that we all know what we're about. We all know what we understand our terminology, but outside the walls of our churches, they don't have a clue what we're talking about, which is one of the reasons Christians need to be thinking more outside the walls, write about, understand where people live, what they're interested in, what they're dealing with. Write about anything and everything, but have as a strategy to bring them in closer and closer,
to catch them.
To the cross, because Leonard Ravenhill, a dear friend of mine, had a lot of great sayings. One of his that was favorite of mine was, one day he said, "Dallas, there's lots of people like to hang around the cross. There's not many that want to get on it." Now that's another whole teaching of dying to ourselves, but that is the essence of the message of the cross. As Christ died, Paul talks about it too. I am crucified with Christ. There is first of all a death that must occur in true Christianity. If it's anything at all, it is first of all a death. Then after that, there's all kinds of things we could discuss and explore. But I think within the creative processes of those who write or authors or singers or whatever, man, cover everything you can cover, but have a strategy that says, but my purpose in doing this is to bring them to the cross. I think it's sad, personally, when I listen to, and I have through the years sometimes, a quote Christian artist, and you go through CD after CD, album after album, and there's nothing there that ultimately would gain your attention to make you think about eternal things. I remember a popular Christian artist once said, I'm a Christian, but I'm not a minister. That's not a biblically sound statement. Mm-hmm. Every Christian is a minister by the nature of the call. So how we minister can be very, very different. But he knew me then, again, simplicity of the song, but all about the cross. And that's what makes me tick. I've always said, if you crack my head open, that's what falls out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Would you like to sing it for us?
Yeah, I can do at least a little of it.
Okay.
Just happen to have my guitar here,
Yes.
Andy. He knew me then, he knows me now, and he died for me. He loved me then, and he loves me now. Oh, how can it be? He saw my face, he knew the place that I would be today. He knew me then, he knows me now, and he loves me. Some people say that he died one day, but that was long ago. Well, I'm sure that he was a very good man, but me he did not know. Well, listen, my friend, what I say is true, that he knew me, and he knew you. He knew you then, he knows you now, and he loves you. He knew you then, he knows you now, and he died for you. He loved you then, and he loves you now. Oh, I know it's true. He saw your face, he knew the place that you would be today. He knew you then, he knows you now, and he loves you. He knew us then, he knows us now, and he loves us still somehow. Thanks.
If any of you were there on that night when they recorded this at Lindale High School, let us know. That would be so fun to hear. How many people were in the auditorium?
Well, I think that auditorium only seated around 300, maybe 350.
You think there were that many?
It was full.
Okay.
And it's been interesting through the years. Of course, we live in Lindale.
That's where I went to high school, where my brother went to high school, so...
And your son is now graduating.
And now my son is graduating, hopefully this month,
right.
Hopefully next month.
Yeah, well, hopefully...
But soon, not because he's failing, but because of COVID. He has done great.
Yeah, everything's kind of shut down, and it's so sad for all the seniors and, events, proms and awards banquets and various things that, he's just been missing, but that's all over the country, so... Yeah. But yeah, we've lived in Lindale for, I can always remember, of course I shouldn't say now.
Yeah.
Because Jennifer was just like 3 or 4 months old when we moved out here. So I'll just say 40 plus years ago we moved here. And, in 76, we moved out in 74, I guess it would be, 76. So we hadn't been here that long. Lindale at that time was population 2,500, I think was the official sign, 25 something. Didn't have a single stoplight in town. If you ate at Ralph's or Dairy Queen. Ralph's wasn't a viable option. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Ralph.
Yeah. It was a very, very small town. Now it's really grown a lot. We got a Walmart and a Lowe's and motels and restaurants and which is good. In one way, it's kind of sad because we've lost some of that small town feel, but at the same time, we don't have to run 20 miles to Tyler, Texas every time we want something.
And you can still go to this grocery store and see people you know. So it's still somewhat small.
And in the course of doing that, in fact, just recently I was at Smith County Lumber, and somebody said, "Oh, I remember we were at your concert."
Really?
So
that's cool.
That was interesting. That every once in a while I'll have someone come up and reference the fact that they remember that concert that we did at the high school all those years ago. In fact, we I don't know how to say this without it's going to sound like I'm bragging. I don't mean to be that. But that, in fact, was one of the first certified gold albums ever given in Christian music. I think, if I remember right, the first certified gold album ever was Bill Gaither's musical entitled Alleluia, A Praise Gathering for Believer, which I actually had the privilege to sing on, so I also got a gold record for that. I think the second one ever was Amy Grant's, and I think it was My Father's Eyes. And then I think the third one, which would be the first male artist, Amy was the first female, was Dallas Holm and Praise Live, which was recorded in that little high school auditorium, which is now, I think, the junior high or middle school, I guess.
E.J. Moss, so it's like 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah, so a lot has changed. But when we got the gold record, I actually had a gold record made for the school.
Yeah. My graduating year, I think it was given at like homecoming game or something.
So we presented a gold record to the school, which I don't know how many schools around the country have got a gold record.
Lindale may have a few since Miranda Lambert went there too.
That's right. That's right.
But you were the first, I'm sure.
Right. That's our claim to fame. We've known Rick and Beverly and their daughter Miranda since Miranda was pretty young, just a little girl, and her and her son Jeffrey were good friends, and Jeffrey's wife Jennifer, or the other Jennifer in our family, they all knew Miranda, and she's a delightful young lady and has done well. So there's something in the water, because Casey Musgraves, if you ever watched Nashville Star, wonderful young man, fabulous singer.
No, Casey Rivers.
Casey Musgraves is from Mineola, just north of us. And so Miranda, Casey Rivers, Casey Musgraves, that's why I got mixed up. And then several other artists used to live in the Lindale area here. Second Chapter Vax lived here for a while. Keith Green lived just probably 3 miles from me. In fact, that's something we can talk about some other time. It's interesting, all the ministries around here, Agape Forest, Twin Oaks, Ranch, David Wilkerson's ministry, Youth with a Mission, his Last Days ministry is Keith's ministry, Mercy Ships, Youth with a Mission. We've had a ton of very significant ministries right here in our area, so we kind of grew up in that environment. But we made our little contribution years ago by doing that album at the high school, and to get back to the point, every once in a while someone will come up and say, "Oh, I was there," and I go, "Really?" There was only about 300 people there. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Well, if you were there, let us know. And obviously, any other comments you want to give, we're going to try to be good at responding to these comments, but we will see them. So we're so happy that you are joining us. As I'm looking in the thing, I see this. What is this?
So, on these podcasts, every once in a while, not every time, but kind of keep your eye on this table because we're going to switch out little items. This is actually, I don't know what this is. It looks like a ray gun. It was given to me by Jennifer and her husband, Jason. I love stuff like this. It reminded me immediately when I was a kid, there used to be a show on, I think it was called Buck Rogers, and I think the star of the show was Buster Crabbe. This would have been back in the 50s, black and white, and my folks would not let my brother and I watch it because it was scary, because it was in outer space. I remember one time, I don't know what the plot of the story was, I was just a little kid, and there was like a dinosaur, some kind of monster, and we were watching it, and my folks came in, "You boys, turn that off, because you're going to have bad dreams tonight," which we did. Because back then, now kids see everything.
It's not Jurassic Park.
No. And it was some kind of little puppet. Buck Rogers' spaceship was probably about this size. If you look carefully, you could see the strings that it was suspended by against a black background. And then to make it look like the rocket fuel, they actually put a sparkler in. So here's this string, this rocket ship would go across with a sparkler.
So funny.
Stuff out, which any of you from the 50s will probably remember that show. And now you look at stuff with computer-generated, visuals. Truly
frightening.
Oh, it's just crazy. I always think when I watch those old programs where they had things like this would have been the death ray gun, If they could see what, I often think of Walt Disney, if he could see what animation is now, it would, as we say, blow his mind. it's so advanced. But anyway, that's a cool little item there. Keep your eyes open. We'll put various cool little items there.
Well, have a wonderful day and join us next time.
Thanks.
Thanks.